What's up, motherfuckers? I'm back, and now we're going to talk about the real best wrestling show this week. That's right. Somewhere I saw a comment talking about NWA. Now, apparently, they have their own show on YouTube. So I figured, I'm not doing anything right now. I'll watch some NWA. So I watched the first episode, and I gotta say, this show was fucking awesome. It was better than NXT. It was better than AEW. It was way better than Raw and SmackDown. So without further ado, we're going to talk about this a little bit. I'm going to review the show, and I'm going to rant as to why this show is better than everything else on TV right now, based only on this episode. And when I say everything else on TV, I mean everything else anywhere. Because as far as I know, this shit ain't on TV. But it should be, fuckers. So we started off with Magnus, who apparently is the champion, the NWA champion right now. And he cuts this awesome promo, right? I never thought that this guy was a promo guy, but he did a really good job, and I love the promo. He was also there with some super, super hot broad. This girl is like easily one of the hottest girls in wrestling right now, and she also was awesome in the main event. The fans clap and cheer, and you can hear this because this is apparently happening all in like one venue. It's not like backstage or anything. It's like right out there, right? And I thought that added a lot to it. You know, the fans cheer at the right moments, and you can hear it loud and clear and organic, and it was fantastic. On commentary, we have some guy that I don't know, and Jim Cornette. Now, you say what you want about Jim Cornette. There's a few things about this guy that are fucking solid. Number one, he's not a pussy. You know, from what I've heard, this guy is not a bitch. And he actually cares about wrestling. He actually gets excited about wrestling. His commentary was on point, 10 out of 10. Compare him to JR, for example, in AEW. JR couldn't give a shit about AEW. Like half the time, he's criticizing AEW. The other half, he's burying the other commentators because they don't know how to do commentary. JR is not logged in when he's doing commentary for AEW. I'm sure he cares about the success of AEW, but he understands that, like, he's kind of selling his soul. Like, he understands that this is not the wrestling that JR can really get excited about. And that's why everyone that's been saying that JR is not doing a good job as commentator is probably right. Because JR does his best work when he is legit excited. When Jeff Hardy is standing over like a little balcony thing and is about to swanton himself onto Bubba Ray Dudley, like in Royal Rumble 2000 or 1999, whatever the fuck it was. The first pay-per-view I ever watched, motherfuckers, when I was a kid. Convinced my mom to get it for me. Since then, right, JR has been known for those moments where you see like a Jeff Hardy and you're like, holy shit, at least as a kid, I'm like, is this guy gonna jump off this fucking balcony, right? And JR is like, don't do it, Jeff, don't do it. You got your whole life ahead of you, right? And you feel the excitement of JR. Or of course, every time he would do commentary for Stone Cold, Undertaker, Kane, The Rock, Triple H, Kurt Angle, the people that actually were awesome and he would legit be excited about. Now, you can't take that kind of excitement and fake it when you're someone like JR. This guy, he clearly cares more about college football and the Sooners, way more than he cares about AEW. You can't present like a Peter Avalon to JR and expect him to have the same excitement as he did for Stone Cold. It's just not in him, you know? And that's why, one of the many, many reasons why NWA was fucking awesome, because Jim Cornette was legit excited and he was doing a good job throughout the show. Next, the intro song too. The whole theme of NWA is that it's kind of like old schoolish, which I dig, only because it's like it's different than everything else, which is presented as like super hip. This is like legit wrestling, like hard hitting, cool things happening. You know, the show is only 1 hour, so that's kind of nice. I enjoyed that. It's not too long. It's not. You don't have to wait too long for the things that they announce, so you don't get bored, right? What do we have? The first match was the Dawsons versus Sal Rinauro and Billy Buck. The Dawsons are fucking awesome. From what I saw, they're just two fat guys, but they cut a really good promo afterwards, just basically saying like, we're not dudes to be fucked with, you know, which I dug. It was basically a squash match. One of the Dawsons holds the opponent in like a tombstone. The other guy runs into the opponent while he's being held, and the guy just falls forward. It worked because it's a big dude falling on top of you, like tombstone style. So I really enjoyed that. Next, we had Eli Drake and Caleb Conley. But before that, Eli Drake cut a promo, which was also fantastic. Thus far, we had 3 promos. They were all good. If you count the little tiny promo that the Dawsons cut after their match. Eli Drake pretty much says that, like, in a day and age when wrestling is just filled with children, NWA has men, grizzled veterans, men, people that have been around the block, the best competitors, just tough dudes, man. And I gotta say, the first time I saw Eli Drake was on that stupid show The Rock did where he's trying to find a hero or something. And he was one of the contestants and he just happened to be a wrestler. And, you know, like, I think after that he was signed with WWE and I was like, this guy sucks. He has no charisma. But after this promo, I completely stand corrected. He killed it on the promo. He wrestled Caleb Conley. Now, a little bit about Caleb Conley. In an indie show that I went to a few years ago while I was in law school, I was driving around and I heard about this indie show. They had AJ Styles. And at that point, AJ Styles was like someone that I'd never seen live and I really wanted to see him live. So I went there and at intermission, Caleb Conley was also in that show. And he was selling things from a table. He was selling things like AJ Styles gloves, a bunch of other bullshit, right? And, like, he just wasn't really engaged with the fans. He was like a total merchant. So he rubbed me the wrong way, but he did well in this match. The match, like, I mean, I won't say it was a 5-star match or anything like that, but it was good for what it was. Eli Drake hits the, the gravy train, which is like a white noise type move, and wins. It was great. Then they introduce me at least, I'm sure some of these people know these guys already, to the wild cards, Tom Latimer and Royce Isaacs. Tom Latimer is Bram from TNA and Kenneth Cameron from NXT with in the Ascension back in the day. Now, Tom Latimer just looks like a monster, right? This guy looks like a bad dude, man. You would not want to fuck with this guy. This Royce Isaacs guy didn't look as intimidating, but they made a good tag team. And I think they're called the Wild Cards because they were kind of put together like randomly, kind of like Beer Money was. But it pretty much squashed this guy called Danny White and Mims. They hit it wasn't like a double team finisher, but basically Tom Latimer hit a pop-up powerbomb. It looked amazing. And then Royce Isaacs hit this like full Nelson lift into a German suplex. And Tom Latimer pinned the victim. And that was nice. Eddie Kingston comes out. I only know of this guy vaguely. He's fat. But he also got a pretty good promo. He pretty much like talked shit to these guys and said that like they don't represent, the stray dog, if you will, in that like they're just like these two jacked tan dudes. But it is what it is. I thought I enjoyed it. Homicide came out. He looked like shit. But it was cool. Like, what's it called? Bram, Tom Latimer, like, pushed the table aside, and it looked awesome. They should have started brawling immediately, but they didn't. But, whatever. It was a nice little segment. Then, some dude named Josephus comes out. I'm not sure if this is, like, one word, because they say it quick, like Josephus, or if it's Joe Cephas. Nonetheless, he comes out calling out this guy called Tim Storm. James Storm comes out, says, if you're looking for a Storm, I'm the real James motherfucking Storm. Pretty much James Storm bullies this guy, says that he has no business being in wrestling. He should go back to his desk job, whoops his ass all around the arena. And then eventually they have like an impromptu match. James Storm hits the last call super kick, which looks awesome. It looks like a super kick finisher. Not like the shitty ones that the Young Bucks do. Not like the shitty one that Dolph Ziggler does. It looks like a legit finisher and it's presented as such. James Storm is awesome. The reason why I watched this show, along from the comment that I heard that it existed, was because I heard that James Storm was in it and I love James Storm. So I watched it just to see like what they're doing with him. He had some sort of belt. I'm assuming James Storm is like the mid-card champion or something like that. I don't know exactly how the title structure works, but anyways, that was it wasn't good. James Storm came out looking like a bully, I think. I don't know if he's a face or a heel. People love him, so he must be a face. But he kind of bullied this guy. This guy was going to bully someone else, but he didn't deserve to be like punked out like that, What else? They showed like this video package of the history between Nick Aldis and Tim Storm. Now, I heard from Tim Storm from some other video I watched or something like a while ago, and basically, from what I understood, this guy was like this 50-year-old journeyman, like a jobber for 50 years, and finally got the NWA title. Now, he's like in his 50s, but I had never seen him. And when I saw him, I'm like, holy shit, this guy looks like a beast, man. If I look like that in my 50s, if I look like that now, motherfuckers, I'd be very happy, right? This guy is just jacked, shredded. Like, I mean, he's not like, he doesn't have like a Dolph Ziggler physique, obviously, because he's like in his 50s, but he looks like he can kick your ass, right? And then it got me thinking, he was very proud about being NWA champion when he was NWA champion, right? And they showed him like he's like a teacher at some school. He's a grandpa, It was awesome because it showed this guy, he was very human, very humble. Like he actually he took it very seriously. And the fact that he was NWA champion, he treated that like he had main evented WrestleMania. And then I'm like, yeah, that kind of sucks because like he's setting his goals low. Then I realized, not at all, man. The NWA title is like one of the most prestigious titles ever. This is a title that's been held by like Ric Flair and a bunch of all the TNA people, prior to them splitting ways. Right, it's like a real fucking title, man, and it really is like an honorable title. Then I started comparing it in my head to other pro wrestling world heavyweight titles. The AEW title, there's only been one champion, so that has no prestige. The WWE title, obviously the most prestigious title in all of wrestling, but for a long time it's been held by Kofi Kingston, and now it's being contended between Brock Lesnar and fucking Cain Velasquez. So that's lost, in my opinion, some prestige because of those events. And the Universal title, to me, is like on the same level as like the US title. Like it's been held by a bunch of jobbers primarily, except for of course Brock Lesnar, but he's been like an inactive champion. Seth Rollins is a mid-carder pretending to be a main eventer. Finn Balor is back in NXT. So I'm thinking to myself, all right, let's take into account the fact like who has held it. Discounting Brock Lesnar, who most people think was a shit champion, right? If you look at the real Universal champions, you got Goldberg, who's like in his 50s as well, and he only held it to set up the program with Brock Lesnar, right? And to just give Goldberg like a last title run. And then the other champions, like the real main roster champions, I'm probably gonna miss a few here, but it's been what? It's been Finn Balor, Seth Rollins, I think Reigns held it for like a cup of coffee, and Kevin Owens, right? And aside from Reigns, who is like a real man, I have to go back to what Eli Drake was saying. It's been held by a bunch of boys. Now, Kevin Owens, because he's fat, he's more of a man than a boy. But in my opinion, if you had Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, and Finn Balor in real life fighting someone like Tim Storm would beat the shit out of them. And the fact that this champion is superior physically, and the fact that the title has more prestige, makes me kind of validate Tim Storm as a very likable wrestler and like a real dude, man, like a real man. I really enjoyed the little promo package. So apparently they've had a few matches for it. So it's going to be Nick Aldis, who everyone knows as Magnus from TNA, with Camille, the hot girl that he's hanging out with, versus Tim Storm. The match was decent. I won't say it was a great match, but the guy impressed me for being a 4-year-old, or whatever the fuck he is, right? It ends, Tim Storm hits his finishing move, which is, I forget what it's called, but it's like the perfect storm, or it has like a name like that, with the word storm in it. He hits that. It's basically a black hole slam. He hits it pretty well considering that he's 54. Magnus kicks out. Tim Storm low blows him because I think this is Tim Storm's last opportunity at the title. He low blows him. They go outside. Magnus does a clothesline. Tim Storm ducks. He hits the girl. Right now, this spot wasn't that good. The setup was stupid. Right, clearly Magnus could see the girl, and more importantly, clearly she could see where this was going. You know what I mean? Like, she's standing behind a guy during a wrestling match, and the other guy who's in front of him is gonna attack him. So clearly, if he misses, she's getting it. She got it. It was cool because she I don't want to say she no-sold it because she sold it, but during the match, the match ended a few seconds after that with a roll-up. During the match, she did kind of get up and almost no-sold it, I guess to put forward the idea that she's going to be a tough broad. So I really like that. After the match, Nick Aldis puts over Tim Storm, saying that Tim Storm is a genuine dude and that NWA is genuine. And then what else? One of the announcers, one of the commentators, he asks the girl if she's okay, and Magnus says she's fine. The fans kind of boo. The girl doesn't speak. Magnus just kind of speaks for her. So I'm actually interested in seeing where that goes, only because Magnus impressed me on the mic today. He's always been impressed me in the ring, and the girl is hot, so she impresses me for that reason, and the fact that she sold it well. So overall, this show, I would give the show like a legit A, maybe an A plus. This was a great show, considering it was their first show, and presumably they can only get better because once they get the production and all that stuff kind of handled, this was fantastic, man. I really, really enjoyed this. But I've saved the best for last. The best part, by far, of this show came in the form of the fans. You could see the fans. The crowd obviously isn't that big. You see the fans, and you can see a clear distinction between the fan base of NWA and the fan base of things like WWE, and even worse, the fan base of AEW, right? The WWE fan base is a bunch of parents with their children, which I understand, but that has a ceiling, right? They can only do so much to cater to that audience. Whereas the AEW fan base is the worst fan base ever. It's just a bunch of fat neckbeard virgins. Like everything MJF says about them is probably true, right? And they just clap along. Oh, MJF talked about me. I do live in a basement and whack off all day to Kenny Omega. But the NWA fans look like people, man. They look like normal people. It was a nice cosmopolitan crowd. You had white people, black people, like normal people. You had like kids that weren't weird, like that weren't like 5 years old. You had kids that were like 7 and 8 that could kind of get like, you could see their excitement, like an actual excitement about actual characters and actual badasses like James Storm, not their excitement and then eventual tears about Bailey and the Bailey buddies. You know what I'm saying? It was a very, very refreshing sight to see. And at 2 times during the show, my one criticism is that it's a YouTube show and they had like, I don't say commercials, but like basically like pseudo commercials. There was one about a wrestling school, and there was some like internal commercials about promoting NWA and NWA products. And one of the commercials, they showed 2 versions of it, like a short version in the beginning and a longer version near the end of the show. And it was just fans pretty much going through these shows and being like, this is awesome. You know, like I grew up watching like real wrestling. Like this takes me back to like wrestling from 30 years ago, which I wasn't old enough. I was barely alive 30 years ago. I didn't watch like early Hulk Hogan. I started watching like Attitude Era when I was like in elementary school, you know? So like late Attitude Era, even like 1998 or so, when I was in 3rd or 4th grade. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I missed the days of like, you know, the Midnight Express, or like, oh, when Hulk Hogan and Lou Thesz, I don't even know if they wrestled, but whatever. Like, I'm not one of those jerk offs, right? I'm not going to sit here and be like, Hulk, like, I only know like Hollywood Hulk Hogan, and then I know like Hulk Hogan after that. That's all I know, man. Like, I just know that he's like Hulk Hogan. Obviously, like everybody knew who he was, but like, I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, take me back 30 years. No, not at all. But I will say that the fans who had been there for 30 years, right, they're like, oh, this is legit. This is actual wrestling, right? And in the longer version of this commercial, they had this old man, right? And he put his arm around like the interviewer, which I think is one of the announcers as well. And he put this man, he must have been in his 60s. Like he cut a promo, like an impromptu promo, pretty much saying like he like went down the roster of people that he likes. He's like Nick Aldis, like Eli Drake, the Rock and Roll Express, who I think is there for some reason, right? He's like, we have the best roster. NWA is awesome. He cut this promo and it made me think, this fan, like literally like that fan promo that he cut, just being like his excitement at being in NWA was better than every single promo that someone like Finn Balor has ever cut, right? Or any promo that like Sami Zayn has ever cut, or any promo that Kevin Owens has ever cut. There is a clear distinction. You take someone like James Storm, he looks like a man, he acts like a man, he wrestles like a man, he talks like a man, right? Then you take some idiot like Sami Zayn who comes out dancing to the ring like some goofball, and like, in my opinion, I don't even think we've gotten to this yet, but in my opinion, Sami Zayn has got to be in the he's got to be in the running at least for worst wrestler in WWE history. This guy, there is nothing about him, man. Zero about him. And I heard that he's a jerk off from some of my friends who are insiders there, Jag. So That's what I'm trying to say here. I'm trying to say that the atmosphere of NWA, despite being small, was fucking phenomenal, right? The fans are normal people who like come to the show because they like wrestling. They watch it for an hour or however long the tapings are, probably longer, right? Then they go home and they spend time with their families. They live their lives. They do whatever the fuck it is they do, I think, in Atlanta, Georgia, right? They're not people like me and you motherfuckers. They're not people that like watch wrestling and then they explore the dirt sheets. Not that I do that, but I know some of the AEW fans do. And they're like, oh, Jack Swagger's back. I wonder if CM Punk... Like, nobody there would give a rat's ass if CM Punk came, right? They care about actual wrestlers, like about actual dudes that look like they can fight, that have, like, real charisma, and that just look like men. Like what Eli Drake said encapsulated this perfectly. These are people that have been around for a while, and they're the wrestlers that got into wrestling because wrestling is cool. They're not like Ricochet, who got into wrestling because he probably played like SmackDown versus Raw 2006, made himself into a character, and gave himself like the shooting star press and did it off a ladder and thought, oh, I could do this in real life. And good for him, he can do the moves. But they're a different breed of man, right? Like everyone in WWE now is a nerd. Like not everyone. You still have like the Brock Lesnar's, Undertaker, Triple H. You still got some good ones. Probably the old ones. John Cena, Randy Orton. Like, can you imagine Randy Orton like going to buy a video game? I'm sure he plays video games, but I play video games. I love video games. And maybe I'll throw some video game stuff down this channel like at one point. But can you imagine like Randy Orton playing Fortnite? You know what I mean? Or like watching anime? No, that's like some Xavier Woods stuff, man. That's the stuff of a man-child. You know what I mean? That's the stuff of a guy that doesn't have what it takes to be a wrestler. That's the stuff of a guy that, even though Xavier Woods is obviously athletic and a big guy compared to normal people, if Xavier Woods met like a Tim Storm or a James Storm in like a street fight, James Storm would whoop his ass within 15 seconds. Not because he's more athletic, not because he's stronger. He might be neither more athletic nor stronger, but because he's tougher and because he's a man. And that is something that we have lost, not only in wrestling, fuckers, but in the real world. We have lost a sense of what traditional masculinity looks like and what draws and what sells. People say like, oh, Vince McMahon likes big guys. No, idiots. He doesn't like big guys. It just so happens that there's a direct correlation between being a big guy and being masculine. Right? That's the only thing. There's plenty of people that aren't big guys that have had successful WWE careers, right? For example, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit. These are not big guys, but they're masculine dudes. They're not goofballs. You know what I mean? They're not like there's big guy and then there's, I don't know, Shawn Michaels, right? Not a big guy. And I mean, people might say not very masculine, but he was like a rock star masculine, right? That was part of the shtick. You can I bet you Shawn Michaels likes to hunt and drink beer and watch football and do these traditionally masculine things. And that's not to say that if you don't like to do those things, and if you're someone like me, I like boxing, I like video games, I like cigarettes, I like rants, motherfuckers. Like there's plenty of things that you're allowed to like. You can like anything you want, but what draws is masculinity at the end of the day, because that is associated with toughness. That is why the ratings have fallen, but the money has gone up, amongst other reasons, of course. The money in WWE has gone up because they have pivoted to a situation where they can market to kids. Kids do like cartoon characters. Kids love Bayley, right? A kid, an 8-year-old, is gonna like Bayley and Finn Balor way more than they're gonna like Stone Cold or like Billy Gunn, right? But anyone who's an adult is gonna look at that, or anyone who's like not an adult and also not a man-child, is gonna look at Sami Zayn and think, man, like, I think I can beat this guy's ass. Like, I look at CM Punk, right? This guy's like the world champion, right? And then he goes to UFC, and I'm just like, and even before seeing him UFC, but especially after seeing him UFC, I think I could beat his ass, man. I really do. Like, he doesn't intimidate me at all. Like, if I saw him in the street, I'd be like, oh, this is just like a normal guy. Like Kofi Kingston, he's just like a normal dude, man. Like, if you put a hoodie on Kofi Kingston, he's just a normal guy, right? If you put a hoodie on The Rock, he ain't a normal guy, motherfuckers. If you put a hoodie on Mark Henry, he's not a normal guy. You go like, holy shit, this guy's a giant. And then that's even before getting to like the real like big dudes. I mean, The Rock now he's huge, but in WWE, WWF, he wasn't that big. But if you take like like prime Scott Steiner and you put like a fucking overcoat on him, he is intimidating, right? You take Kofi Kingston, you put like a slightly baggy hoodie or like a baggy jersey, and you're like, oh, this guy's like, doesn't even look athletic, you know, let alone intimidating. So that's the thing. That's the difference, right? You can be small and look intimidating, like an Eddie Guerrero when he came back to fight Rob Van Dam, or even like you can have other attributes like a Jeff Hardy or something like that, where like you're like, all right, like this guy's cool. He's not the biggest guy, but he wrestles in a way that makes sense. And despite that, he's not like a cruiserweight, right? And then you can have like, that's, for example, perfect example. In my last NXT video, I explained how I personally really enjoy Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan. Now, neither of these guys are big guys by any metric, right? But they are tough guys. You can tell that they're tough guys. They're presented as tough guys, right? Fabian Eichner, right? This guy looks like a tough guy, man. He's got the face. He's not a big guy, but I believe that Fabian Eichner would be able to destroy Sami Zayn, who's probably a little taller than him, right? It's not just height and it's not just width. It's a combination of the two and the attitude that genetically, or not genetically maybe, but that naturally, I should say, comes with being a bigger person. If you're a bigger person, it's going to be easier for you to be confident. And that's what sells. It's that confidence, that manhood, right? That's what it is. Takes even like Jeff Jarrett, not a big guy, but he didn't look like a pussy. You understand what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying? You morons, you AEW idiots. Like, you take someone like Darby Allin, and I don't give a rat's ass. Darby Allin can grow 2 feet and gain 100 pounds, and he'll still look like a pussy. That's the difference, man. Cody Rhodes, same thing. He's not a small dude compared to people in AEW, but he looks like a pussy. He doesn't look like someone that if I saw on the street, I'd be like, oh man, please don't hurt me. You know what I mean? And like, I'm personally not a pussy myself, but I'll tell it to you straight, man. If like, I'm walking down the street and I see Prime Kane, I'm thinking to myself, man, I hope this guy doesn't pick a fight with me because I'm going to have to fight him and he's going to beat the shit out of me. I would have no chance against Prime Kane. I would have no chance against Mark Henry, like, let alone Big Show and these other monsters that they had. But even like Triple H, even Billy Gunn, you know, even X-Pac, man, like he looks like a tough guy. He's out there kicking people. He's just acting like a jerk off. There's something to be said about that. And that is what is lost. That is why people like Orange Cassidy will never be stars. It's not because they're not big enough. It's because I honestly, if I saw him in the street, I would have no problem slapping him in the face. I don't even think he'd do anything, man. I don't think he'd do anything if a man slapped him in the face. Like, that's what I'm saying. I might be wrong. You know, like, I'm judging books by covers up in this bitch. I might be wrong. Darby Allin might be like a complete lunatic that takes my head off, right? John Moxley might be a lunatic that takes my head off. And that's why he's in the upper echelon of these things. Jericho, you can tell he's not a pussy. Like, Jack Swagger, you can tell he's not a pussy. Like, Sammy Guevara, he is a pussy, man. You can just tell by his face. And even, again, I have to stress it, even if Sammy Guevara is the toughest guy they have, and he's some, like, athletic prodigy, like some Sage Northcutt type motherfucker that can beat my ass in 20 seconds, that doesn't matter, because presentation is 9/10 of everything, right? When you present to me skinny fat CM Punk, I believe I can beat him, right? And when he goes to the UFC and gets destroyed, I know I can beat him. You understand what I'm saying? That's the difference. Tim Storm, 54 years old. I look at him and I'm like, man, if this guy was my teacher in high school or whatever the fuck he teaches, I'd be like, holy shit, man. My teacher looks like he can beat the shit out of everybody. You know what I mean? And I thought to myself, imagine if you work at Tim Storm's school and you're like a young, I don't know, 23, 24-year-old male teacher. You know, you come in there, you're like, yeah, I'm like a young guy, I'm hot shit. And then you see Tim Storm and you're like, fuck, man, I've been completely emasculated by like the 54-year-old, whatever, geography teacher, whatever the fuck he teaches, right? That's what I'm saying. It's all about that. And this inspires me, cocksuckers. It inspires me to make a video, like these last few minutes that I've been ranting right now, it inspires me to make a video about masculinity as a whole and the complete shift of focus from what a man should be to what a man has become now. And what a man has become is, I'm not going to get into it too much, but what a man has become is an indistinguishable, like, beta, nothing, right? You take like a Ryan Gosling type, you know what I mean? Good actor. I actually like Ryan Gosling. Or like a Jake Gyllenhaal. I know another one of my favorite actors actually, right? But you take these guys and you look at them and you're like, what the fuck is this? And I'll conclude with this that just came into my mind. Terminator 3, the real sick sequel to Terminator Judgment Day, one of my favorite movies of all time, is coming out very, very soon, motherfuckers. And this serves to show you that Arnold Schwarzenegger, he is not this intimidating guy anymore. Like, he's not a guy that can beat the shit out of, I don't know, John Cena or The Rock or Jason Statham even at this point, right? But he is a draw because he has the appearance of a tough guy. He is presented as a tough guy, and he looks like a tough guy. Now, compare him to like a fucking Adrian Brody. Now, nothing against Adrian Brody, another good actor, but the reason I compare them is this. Because in Predator, one of the best movies of, I mean, I saw it in the 90s, but I think it's from the 80s, where Arnold Schwarzenegger and a bunch of like alpha males, like soldier types, go out to like a jungle somewhere in Africa or maybe in the Amazon, I don't know, and they are systematically hunted by this alien being called the Predator, right? The Predator that's what the Predator does, motherfuckers. He finds you, he scans you with his heat vision, and then he kills you, right? He kills all of these motherfuckers except for Arnold, right? And in order for Arnold to defeat the Predator, he sets up this intricate, like, log contraption. He cuts up a fucking tree, sets up a log contraption, and he fights Predator. Predator's whooping his ass. He falls into Arnold's trap. The log hits him and crushes him. As Predator is dying, he activates his little, like, arm console thing, and he self-destructs, giving Arnold a mere few seconds to escape the blast that this one Predator, fuckers, is unleashing on him after he killed all of his friends. Then I stopped watching, of course, when they started doing all these stupid remakes, but I saw a scene where Adrian Brody, who's now like the star of whatever, like Predators or Alien vs. Predator or some other bullshit, he like kills like 10 Predators in the first 5 minutes as if it's like, you know, as if it's normal. That's not normal. It took Arnold a fucking like 2-hour movie to kill one. Arnold, arguably the greatest alpha male like actor of all time. It took him 2 hours to kill one. And then Adrian Brody, the pianist, this guy, he goes and kills 10 or 15 Predators like in the opening scene or whatever the fuck part of the movie that was. No, fam. That's what's wrong with everything. Like, we are led to believe that Adrian Brody can kill 10, 15 Predators, and the weak men amongst us, instead of going to the gym, maybe hitting the bench press a little bit, or you know what I mean? Like, getting in shape, dressing like a man, acting like a man, being a gentleman, being a savage sometimes when the opportunity calls for it, right? Not breaking the law. I'm not saying break the law, motherfuckers. Don't take this. Don't Marilyn Manson me, right? But we take this and we tell the weak person who would have a shot, they would have a shot at going to the gym and starting to play sports and doing something that makes them masculine. We tell them, well, you don't have to do all this. Why would you want to be strong like Arnold when you can be like Adrian Brody and kill 10 times as many Predators, motherfuckers? And that's the problem. I don't even know how I got to this, but this rant was about NWA, and this was a legit organic moment. I do not script my videos. I just take notes on my phone about what happened so I don't forget. And this second part of this video was 100% raw. And this is what fuels me. These societal norms that have ruined the things that I once cherished. And when I have children of my own one day, when I hopefully have a boy, I would like a girl too, but I'd like to have a boy. I'm going to instill in him masculinity, virtues of honor, integrity, chivalry, all these things that have been replaced with cuckolding, a bunch of other bullshit like that, like people watching other men fuck their wives, and this being some sort of like liberal, like, oh, that's okay, this is like just you now. Yeah? No, fam, it's not okay. What's okay is this: rent every action movie made in the 80s or 90s on Amazon, starting with all Van Damme movies, all Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, and once you're done with that, watch Con Air, starring Nicolas Cage, the greatest actor of all time, and The Rock, starring Nicolas Cage, the fucking greatest actor of all time. And if you watch those movies and you do not understand what a man is, then you are a lost cause. Then I suggest you unrent those movies, you return them to Redbox, or more likely than not, you have the time lapse on your Amazon Prime account, and then just wait until Wednesday night comes and turn on AEW and watch Orange Cassidy and fucking Darby Allin pretend to be men. That's what I gotta say about that. You can go and fuck yourselves.